Hi, everyone. I don't know who's listening, but I hope a lot of people are listening. Uh, my name is Joey Hunter. I was co-president of Ford's for 20 years. I became a partner, and I started out as a model. Started out as a model back in the 60s. Became very friendly with Jerry Ford, and so when I needed a job and I realized I wasn't going to make much money as a model, I became an agent and ran the men's division. Just like that. He said, Joey, go ahead, it's yours. The person who was running it has moved on to another agency, so you can take over. I took over, I built up the business, and so I became acquainted with Eileen. Jerry and I shared an office up on the second floor in the men's division, and Eileen had an office downstairs in the women's division. So I became friendly with Eileen. Eileen was a fabulous person, personally, crazy in business, said whatever she wanted to say, was able to make people cry, was able to yell at clients, and was very protective of her girls, as we say. We'll call them girls. The girls used to come and get advice from her. She was very frank with them. Used to tell them she didn't like what they were wearing. She didn't like their hair. She didn't like their eyebrows, and, got things done. And she really got kids and girls ready to go out there and compete and get the jobs that were offered, and be able to groom them, as you would say. The girls loved her. Some of them hated her because every time they went in, she made them cry. And I'll never forget, she would, we had a booker by the name of Monique, who came from France, and Eileen hired her while she was a receptionist at Revlon. And every time Monique would come in, she said, "Did you learn how to speak English? Did you learn how to speak English?" And there was Monique on the board talking to everybody in her accent. And everybody understood her, but Eileen would say, "When are you going to learn how to speak English?" So she had I found it amusing. A lot of people found it not amusing, and would go and cry. But when I was at the men's division, Eileen really didn't pay attention or have any feelings for the men. And she would come up and she would say, "Joey, get a bunch of guys. We're going to go paint the agency." And I'd say, "Eileen, but these guys are working and they're making $60 an hour, $100 an hour." Well, back in those days, it was $60 an hour. I said, "They can't paint a wall for you." She said, "Well, if they're not working, get all the guys that are not working and get them painting, get them doing something." Well, she would invite me out. She had a house in Quogue. And she'd invite us out for the weekend. She'd take all the girls out that were that lived with her. And sure enough, I came out with a bunch of guys, and we were there to paint. She had rooms to be painted, and that's what we did. She fed us well. We had a good time, but we had to work. She was like that, but she had a heart of gold, and when Christmas came and your birthday came, she always had something for you, and always was giving. And she'd spend like weeks and weeks collecting presents in her office for Christmas for particular people that she liked around the country. There are a million stories with Eileen. I have another funny story. Eileen collected dogs, and how she did that up the block was a veterinarian. And on her way to work in the morning, she stopped there. She'd have Sheldon drop her there, and she'd go in, and she'd say, "What dogs are for adoption?" And she'd pick out a dog, bring it to the office. And then she called people all over that she knew, all over the United States, and say, "I've got this beautiful dog for you. He's fabulous, and I'm going to send it to you." And she would send these dogs to people, and a lot of them didn't want to say no, But she would send these dogs across the country or wherever she had to get them a home. And I'll never forget, Jerry got so crazy one day and went down there and said, "No more dogs. I don't want any more dogs." So sure enough, she brings back a dog, and Jerry wasn't in yet. So she said, "Hide the dog in the men's division. Jerry's going to stay down here today." So I had this dog upstairs, an Irish setter, and we had a big terrace. And I said to my agents, I said, well, let's put him on a terrace, and this way he can go to the bathroom and whatever he has to do. But needless to say, the dog jumps off the roof of the terrace and goes down one floor and lands in this garden of holly and weeds. And Jerry is looking out the window and sees the dog flying through the air. So, of course, I run down and I say, "Jerry, he's going to jump off the third floor now. Let me go get him." So I went and get the dog, and, of course, we brought him to the vet. The vet was no broken bones, and the girl at the veterinarian, at the vet's, adopted him. And that was the end of the dogs and Eileen with her dog stories. I got with us today Marion Smith. Now, Marion and I go back to the 60s. She was a stylist and I was a model. And we both started working at Ford at the same time. Myself in the men's division, and she worked down in the women's division. So she worked right with Eileen, sitting next to each other on the booking board. I've got to say, Eileen sat at that booking board from early in the morning till she went home at night. And so I'd like to introduce Marion, if I can figure out how to find her. Bottom, Marion. No, that's Marie. Oh yeah, okay. Here we go. I'm a little Marion to share the screen. I don't know what happened, but oh, here we are. Marion. Good to see you, Marion.
See you.
And Marion, as I say, was really in the line of fire. She had to sit with Eileen all day long and listen to her. Now, Eileen protected her models, protected the girls that hired her to represent them. She would get on the phone, and if a girl came back and said a client was a little off color, she was on the phone yelling and screaming, saying, "You'll never get that model again. You'll never get that model again." And she had a townhouse where she kept, correct me if I'm wrong, Marion, 5 or 6 models, maybe 8 sometimes.
I think 8 was the maximum.
8, and they would have to go to the country with her every weekend. She would never leave them alone in the house. So the weekend came Friday, they all went off in the cars to the country. So she was very protective, and I say, she was the pioneer in this business. She built up the business to what it is. She really took care of her kids and took care of the business, and made sure that models got paid, and made sure that the people that they're working for weren't going to take advantage. Now, Marion, you may know more than I did because I wasn't down there. I just know basically I've got a million stories about her, what she's done to me and how we interacted. I never forget when I was working on a contract. This was in the 80s when I started working with a lot of the girls on. Jerry and I initiated signing everybody with exclusive contracts. She got so mad at me because I was talking about this one girl, because I was trying to close a deal, that she came upstairs and said, "Here's all her charts. You talk to the girl." I told the girl never to call here again. She's only to talk to you. So, of course, I had to get Jerry to go downstairs and say, "Hey, Jerry is doing his job for her. You are representing the girl. He can't represent the girl for the men's division. So I had Jerry always intercede for me when I got on Eileen's bad side. And
Well,
it was something you didn't want to do.
I think that Jerry was the mediator for all of us. He was like the arbitrator.
Yeah, he was the good guy.
Right.
After
Yeah.
she wrecked havoc, he come in and he made everything right.
Right. If he knew you were upset, he would take you or me and he would sit and talk about things that had nothing to do with business until you calmed down. And then he'd go back to talking about Eileen after you were calmed down, after you were crazy with her. But I think I had a very different relationship with Eileen than you did because, yes, I was downstairs every day, all day. And she was in that booking room every day, all day. And, you know, she had her way of doing things, her way of seeing how the model should be treated, how the model should be spoken to, and that was what she wanted. And I think as her protective side, the models came first. I mean, she was not going to put up with any model being abused in any way, verbally, you know, mentally, yelled at, screamed at by a client. She was very defensive of the girls. And as you say, she was the pioneer of this industry. I really believe that if it weren't for Eileen Ford, we probably wouldn't have the industry we have today, although today is not like it was when we were doing it. I think the industry has changed greatly from when we were booking models. But,
Well,
you know, I was with Eileen, and she had to have the last word, and I had to have the last word. So one of us would always wind up with Jerry, you know, and Jerry would calm everybody down. But I think as far as you were concerned, you were upstairs and you were out of her sight. So when you got involved in something, she was like, "Why is he involved? You know, how did he get involved?" So trying to
right.
explain, you know, Eileen, Jerry and Joe, they're upstairs, they do the contracts, they deal with that client. No, 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 no. So, you know, she was funny that way. She was just funny that way.
She was. She I try to stay out of her sight or out of her way because once she saw you and she'd either be mad at something to talk to you about, or otherwise she brought you in her office and she talked to you about things that you couldn't care less about.
Right.
But she had somebody that she could bounce things off of. And she, you know, when all this started in the late 70s and early 80s, where we started promoting the models, you know, it happened, I guess, with Cheryl Tiegs. Nobody knew who Cheryl Tiegs was. They just knew she was a beautiful blonde girl, and this other girl, Dale Haddon, was a beautiful brunette, and you know, and nobody knew their name or what they did. And I got to give credit a lot to Glamour because they started using the college kids with their names, and that's where Candace Bergen came from. But Jerry hit on the idea, and we hit on the idea. We're going to let everybody know that Cheryl Tiegs is that blonde in the cover girl ad. Cheryl Tiegs is Cheryl Tiegs, and that she lives in California. She works in New York. She's got a boyfriend. She goes to the beach. She works out. She graduated this school, and we hired PR people to promote them. You know, Cheryl, Christy, Lauren, a lot of different girls, but we started with that core. And it soon,
Karen Graham in there.
Karen Graham, correct.
Uh, you know, and I guess a lot of girls that didn't get PR, nobody knew who they were, but they were almost like the bread and butter of the agency. You know, the Julie Floyds, the Kirsten Allens, those kind of girls.
Exactly. But we started with that and really gave the models recognition that people knew who each model was. Even in the J.C. Penney catalog, they knew the names of the models. Colleen Corby, everybody knew that was Colleen Corby in 17.
Right.
And it hit on, and the advertisers started using the names. It was interesting because all of a sudden, in all the cosmetic ads, there was the name of the model, and it really made a lot of sense. And I think it Jerry and myself, Jerry coined the word supermodel way back in the late 70s, with Cheryl and Lauren, and, that they were supermodels, even though I think the term was used loosely in the 60s, going back to Eileen in the early 60s and 50s, but it really didn't become a household name until Jerry started using it with myself back in the late 70s. Uh, I It was funny. I got another story, Marion. When the girls would go in to see Eileen and she'd yell and scream, or she'd say nice, they all came up to the men's division to hang out because I had a big terrace and I had couches, and all the girls would come up, chat with the guys that were there. Sometimes there were no guys there, and the girls would just sit and talk because there was an oasis for them to get away. Uh, and Eileen would call and say, other girls up there, other girls up there. I'd say, yeah, Eileen, they're relaxing. Well, get them down here, get them down here. So I'd say, Jerry, they like to see you downstairs. So they would go down there reluctantly to be under Eileen's thumb,
And then she
needless
would
to
tell
say.
them they're not allowed to go up there.
What's that?
She would tell them, you are not allowed to go up to the men's division.
Right. She would tell them that. That's right. She said you would not, right. It was funny as hell. She had like rules, and like the men's division was off the grid, and
It wasn't
it
in her mind. Was not in her mind. It was
she had no idea what a male model was,
right.
who a male model was, like who were the male models, nothing. The only time she came in contact with the male models is if they came to her house to date one of her models. Like they would meet on the set, and they would be living with Eileen, and all of a sudden, Patrick would show up and knock on the door and say, "Oh, I'm here to see Kirsten Allen," or "I'm here to see so and so," and she would say, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "I'm going to call Joey." But and she'd be so protective of the girl. I guess she let them out on dates. She did let them out though to go to dinner. Uh, But yeah, the men's division was like, what is that?
Right. Not on her radar at all.
Yeah. And I used to tell her, Eileen, I get paid for this. I can't be doing this for you. I'm getting paid. You are?
Oh,
How much are they giving you? I said, Eileen, why don't you talk to Jerry? He knows what he's doing. Okay. That was the end of it. She never spoke to Jerry. She never brought it up again. But Marion, you were, you were there when girls would come in and she'd make them cry, and she'd yell at the bookers, and
well,
she really ruled with an iron fist.
I think in the early days, um, I wouldn't say she was a tyrant, but she was very strong-willed and very verbal. And she didn't have any shenanigans going on. And if girls came in complaining about something, or weren't dressed properly, or their hair was a mess, yeah, she would let them know right away. You cannot go out and represent Ford models looking like this. Who do you think you are? And of course, they would cry, and she wouldn't care that they were crying. And then we would try to calm them down. And a lot of people, um, especially in the early days, only saw that very tough side of Eileen Ford. Because I was there, I think I saw the generous side, the motherly side, the consoling side. I mean, if a girl came in and had a fight with her boyfriend or lost whatever, she would take them and talk to them, and everything will be all right, honey. Don't worry, we're here to take care of you. But she was not going to put up with anything that interfered in the daily running of the business. I mean, we were Ford models, and her feeling was we had an image to maintain, and that's what was going to be. And even with staff, I mean, staff knew that you did not take off a Monday or a Friday. She would not tolerate it. As far as she was concerned, sorry, you wanted nothing but a long weekend. So nobody was allowed a Friday or a Monday. You know, if you were late and she was at the booking table, she let you know about it. You know, I remember one booker that we had who, a personal shopper of hers, that she hired and brought in as a booker. And the girl was constantly late. And she came in one day very, very late. And I said to her, "Why are you late?" And the girl said she was having a women's issue. No, she was sorry, that was why she was late. And Eileen said, "You're fired." And that was the first time in the entire time that I worked there that I ever saw Eileen fire someone. I didn't put up with it, you know.
Yeah, I've never seen her fire anybody. And I used to, Jerry and I did the firing.
Yeah.
Eileen did the hiring.
Yeah.
And Jerry and I did the firing. and and you know, she'd send up a girl for me to fire who probably I've seen down at the booking room, never had any words with her, have no idea why I'm firing her, you know, just that Eileen said it, and I would have to smooth it over and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, we've got too many bookers," or something like this. "We really love you, but you know," and I would do that. It was either I or Jerry, you know. And also, a lot of the really top girls would sort of butt heads with Eileen. Not really. Am I right, Marion? You know, it wasn't that they didn't like or didn't respect her, but they were button heads, and they always wound up in my office or Jerry's office, you know, and we'd have to listen to them or what their problems are. and I'd love to mention all the names of the girls, you know, that have come up, and the girls that used to hang out up in the men's division. It was really funny and really a lot of fun. And there was Eileen downstairs doing her thing. I mean, she really did it, Marion. You're right. I mean, this business wouldn't be what it is today if it weren't for her. You know, with the cancellation fees, the locations, the rain days, you name it, and the rates, you know, going up. She would say, "Just raise the rate. Just raise the rate. Just raise the rate."
And the rules about nudity on the set. I mean, she was very strict about that.
And the lingerie, right, about lingerie, people being in the room and stuff like that.
Also, that you couldn't book a model for 15 minutes. You know, that somebody would say, "Oh, we only used her for 3/4 of an hour." And they would say, "No, there's no 3/4 of an hour. It's a half an hour or an hour, but there's no 15-minute booking."
Exactly.
You know, she wouldn't tolerate any of that.
And getting to the people that were really, I say, pigs in the business, photographers and clients who really try to take advantage of some of our girls. It was announced. If you see, there was a lot of problems. If we didn't want to send a girl, Marion, this is the truth, to a certain client, that girl would leave us and go to another agency who would do it. Am I correct?
Absolutely, because other agencies just turned a blind eye to the whole situation. Eileen would not do that.
Right.
I mean, if Eileen heard something about a photographer, you know, treating a girl away, she shouldn't be, anything, you know, in the world of Me Too now today, we didn't have that then, but anything to the likes of that, she wouldn't have it. And she would say, "You're not going to that photographer, you're not going to that client." And you know, girls, I think, thought, "Well, I'm my own person, I'm a model, da 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 da, I can make my own decision." And yes, they would leave and go to whatever other agency, turned a blind eye to what was going on in our business. Eileen was not like that, ever.
But wouldn't we, I would tell the model, like, look, this guy is this way.
Right.
He's going to try to take advantage of you. He may be naked on when you walk in, uh, and we knew Harvey Weinstein was a pig, right from the get-go, but we told the girls, we warned them, this is what's going to happen to you. But the model's an independent, and she
Exactly.
picks and chooses what she wants to do. So if she wanted to go to see somebody that we didn't like, or especially that not me, but Eileen didn't
Right.
like, and they wanted to see that person, the booker you warned them and said, this is what you're going to expect.
Right. But we couldn't stop them. That's
No, you
what
couldn't
I say.
stop them.
No, we couldn't stop them because, certain girls of certain caliber at that point, I think, felt, I'm my own business person. I can make up my own mind. I'm going where I want to go. And if they chose to go, they chose to go. With fair warning, we couldn't stop them from going there. There was no way.
Exactly. So we identified everybody in the business that we felt weren't the right people to be working for or to be around, and whoever they were, we always conveyed it to the model. You're going to go on this appointment, but this is what you're going to expect, and this is the type of person they are. We set it up front. Eileen would never overlook it. I mean, she in a sense would say, tell them what she felt, but she never overlooked the fact that something was wrong or something wasn't right, and she conveyed it to the model.
Always. I think in other situations too, when you had, um, I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to say cults, but uh, societies being formed or groups being formed that try to entice models into some kind of a money deal or a stock deal or something like that. And Eileen would bring them in and say, "You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't give anybody your money. You shouldn't let anybody near your finances." I think that Jerry and Eileen were probably two of the few people that ever advised a model and said, if you're going to be making this kind of money, you need a financial advisor, you need somebody that's taking care of you, that you trust. And we had people that we trusted, although I think that, a lot of models didn't take that to heart. They just did what they wanted to do. And look, we had girls that made thousands of dollars that had no money because they just squandered it away or had boyfriends that squandered it away. Or what was the thing we had? Models for Jesus, was it?
Yeah, the models for Christ.
And you had these guys that would get involved with these.
Oh, then we had Freddie von
Right.
Myers with the cult.
Exactly, and they wanted models to give up their husbands, denounce their families, give up their earthly goods, boats, I mean anything, your apartment. And Eileen would bring them in and say, "You cannot get involved with this." I think even in that situation, Eileen did call what she called the district attorney, that
Yeah,
abuse
she
girl.
would call the district attorney. She did it a few times with a few models that she felt was getting beat for the money. Talking about models and money. Uh, we never invested their money, and
Right.
we told them to find somebody, find a lawyer, find an investment banker, and put your money to work. But Eileen had certain models as they came and went, had certain boyfriends.
Right.
These boyfriends, I would say, were recycled. That meant that when this group of models left, they grabbed onto another group of models. And they would be around for a year, 2 years, and they would live off the
Right.
models. They were good looking guys. They would meet them in clubs or
Right.
wherever, and they'd latch on to these models. And sure enough, the model, when the guy left, the model was broke. Or when the model was about to leave, she didn't have the money she thought she had. You know, and Eileen knew these people. So girls were very seldom talking to Eileen about their boyfriends.
Right.
Because if he was on the D list, you know, she wouldn't have it. You know, if they ever showed up at one of her parties with one of these guys, she went crazy.
Wow.
Crazy. She would tell them right to their face, you know, that you're not doing, you're using this model, you're just taking her money, you know, right off. So these guys avoided seeing Eileen. That was the last thing they wanted to do. But she was very strict on that, and she had a list of guys, you know, not a real list, but in her mind. And I have to agree with her. These guys dated one model after another.
Cocktail parties or something that we would have up in the townhouse.
Yeah.
And you know, invited, and she would suddenly see these two or three guys that were there, and she would go over and say, "Who are you? Who invited you here? How did you get here?" And they would make up something or another, and she would say, "I don't know you. Get out."
Yeah, she'd throw them out right out of the party. She'd
Right
throw
out.
them out.
Right out.
And, you know, a lot of them would say, "Oh, this girl invited me," you know, one of the models. And she'd say, "I don't care, out, out."
Get
And
out.
she escorted them right out the door. Uh, she had these parties where she brought people together. And she brought the right people together. You know, she brought a lot of working people in the industry and a lot of models. And, you know, I was always at the parties because I was on the, you know, one of the executives. So, but she did very well for the kids. Very protective. And I've got to say, as crazy as she was, she had a heart of gold.
Well, I think what she would do, and they were very good at it. It's almost like having the PR company. Is she would take a select group of models that were geared toward the magazines, and then she would invite those editors
Yeah.
to come, people to come, and we would have a party where everybody would get to know one another, so forth and so on, with the stores, with the catalogs. She would always like be sure that this group belongs with this group, and that's how they would get to know one another. The clients would get to meet the girls, and I think it made a huge difference. I mean, you know, our girls work like crazy. I mean, again,
Yeah.
we had that girls that absolutely nobody knew. I mean, nobody knew. And those girls worked in catalog and stores.
They made a
Worked
fortune.
a week, 24 hours a day. They made a fortune. They were really bread and butter. And then aside from that, we had, as Jerry coined them, the supermodel. You know, the girls that did the Vogue and did
Right.
contracts and, you know, so forth and so on.
Well, the one thing about the difference between today and then, we entertained a lot.
Right.
We were told to entertain,
Right.
and we would take. I know when I in the men's division, I would take guys out with girls. I even formed the softball team, and we played in Central Park. And I got to say, we were number one, and we played against advertising agencies and film companies. And all the girls used to come and watch us play, and then we'd all go to dinner down to Little Italy or a place called the Mad Hatter uptown, and then Little Italy downtown, and we'd all eat and sing and have a good time, and she encouraged it. You know, she never ever told me, "Joey, don't take these people out, or don't go out. I don't want you to go out." She knew I was out, and she knew I was going out with the models, whether they were male or female, and I was going out with clients, and I was entertaining. I had a huge budget to entertain, and today, nobody
Nobody.
entertains. Nobody entertains
You know,
anymore.
there are no agency owners, or there are no, and I'm not blowing our horn, but no people like me and you that were like involved in the agency so much that we did those kind of things. We brought people
Yes.
together. There are no agencies today that you hear of having a cocktail party or a Christmas party where they have Christmas party for their employees, but not for the talent and clients. You know, look, remember at Christmas time, I know you did it. We did it together, and I did it with her. I mean, for the 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, I think that she and I took every editor, every buyer, every catalog person to a lunch, whether it was 21 or at the Sherry Netherland, or, you know, she loved the deli in the Delmonico where you could get the pastrami sandwiches. You know, we took somebody to lunch every day.
Yeah.
And you did the
I
same.
did
And
the
we,
I did the same thing, and what she would do is she'd call me and say, Joey, I ordered 10 cases of wine for you. They're at Sherry Lehman. Write a list, tell them where you want it sent,
right,
and send it to your clients. She
right.
was very generous that way. And that's what I would do. I'd send all these gifts out to particular clients. And, you know, I started having Christmas parties with tuxedos and black tie, and sure enough, a lot of the girls came. Eileen and Jerry came. I did it at my apartment. We always had about 50 people, stylists and whoever, people that we talked to all the time, you know.
Yeah. But
Uh, and it was great fun. And she would have a cocktail party, and this is, you know, where she started collecting these gifts, and she'd have, I'm sure she had you in there saying, who should we send this to? I got this for this person. Shouldn't we send this one to this person? And she did that with all the girls who worked downstairs. You know,
you had wine to send out. I had little glass birds. Butch Jensen or wherever on Madison Avenue, and she put little glass birds, little glass cats. I had all those things to send out. You had wine.
I had wine. I have so many gifts around this house from Eileen,
Yeah.
from dinnerware to pewter to you name it, to my ID bracelet, which she gave me. So she took very good care of the people that worked for her.
Oh, wait. The first year I was there, it was 1969. I started in November 1969. At Christmas, when we had our office Christmas party, and she was giving out uh, presents to everybody, she gave me my present. And I opened it up, and I was floored. It was the Cartier rolling ring, which I still wear. And I went home and I was like, I haven't been there a month, and I got a Cartier rolling ring. She was so good to me. And you know, unfortunately, that's a side that a lot of people didn't see. And that goes for the bookers. You know, if a booker had a problem with a husband or a child, or she was there, you know, let me help you. I mean,
Yeah.
we had one agent in the women's division, um, maybe the 80s, whose child she put entirely through school.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, she
but
was like that.
like that, you know, I mean, it's the same story for me, you know, with my sister. I mean, you know, when I came there, I had my sister. Then my dad passed away, and she was, you know, you come to us, you come to me. I mean, she really made my sister and I part of her family. And
Yeah.
even when my sister started to go to college, she would say to her, you do not call Marion for anything. If you need something, you call me. And when you're not in school, you come down here and work, and you make some money.
Yeah.
Right? That's a whole side of her a lot of people never saw.
Yeah. We were one big family.
Sure.
Uh, we were one big family, and Eileen was our mother, and Jerry was our father. Uh, I, you know, she would send kids to the doctor if they weren't feeling good. Model, she'd call the doctor on the phone and get them in that minute. You know, I mean, that's how caring she was. And I'll never forget Jerry when the flu vaccine first came out many years ago. He have vaccine day.
But
He'd have the doctors come in and,
the nurse from Dr. Prutting's office came
oh, right, the nurse, yeah.
every year. The entire staff got the
and give us our vaccine. And then I know even myself, when I started working there, and I was in my 30s, Jerry said, "Come on, we got to go for an annual checkup." And I said, "Where?" He said, "Come on, you're coming to my doctor." And every year since then, I've had an annual checkup. Uh, and Jerry initiated that, and he took anybody that wanted to go, or he made the appointment for them for their checkup. He was very, very conscious about that, and he was very good about that.
Well, that's a smoking issue when everybody was still smoking cigarettes. And when I was
Yes,
there, they were cigarette smokers. And then they were hypnotized. And
yes,
it worked for them. And they came back and they told everyone in the staff, if you want to be hypnotized to stop smoking, we will pay for it. And
that's
if
right.
cigarettes for, I don't know if it was 3 months, 6 months, they would give you an extra week's vacation. So that's a side that nobody sees, and it's certainly nobody gets that today.
No, no, I mean, uh, she would, she'd go shopping for her garden, and all of a sudden on my doorstep in the city was 2 bags of bulbs for my country house, 2 bags of this seed, anything she bought for herself for her house, she would buy it for me to plant. And it was a lot of work to plant them, but she would send them to you. Oh, I got a great deal on bulbs. I sent you 2 dozen. Uh, I got the daffodil plants. You got to pick them up at my house in the country. So I'd have to drive up and pick up the plants to go take them to my house. Uh, so what she did for herself, she did for you too, uh, which is very unusual in this day and age. But she felt if it was good for her, it was good for you, and she wanted to share it with you.
I don't think in this day and age that any agency owners have the relationship with their staff that you and I had.
No.
I don't think it exists anymore. I think everybody's in their own little world, and there's just not that same kind of bond between staff and agency owners anymore.
What year did we become co-presidents? Was that in the 90s or the late 80s?
Well, I became a vice president in '74, so uh, I think probably the late '80s.
Late 80s. Yeah, she first of all, we became owners in the 70s, I think, late 70s. We all they gave us a percentage each uh, of uh, of Ford. Uh, Marion and I were the only two outsiders. The other owners were the family, our family. And then after that, we became co-presidents uh, until we left. We were co-presidents of the company, which I'd say was about 5, 6 years that we were there. But I've got only good memories of Eileen and really good memories of Jerry. And Jerry was like my father. He taught me everything I know in the business, and he taught me how to be a diplomat because he took care, put out all the fires. He put out all the fires, and Eileen made all the fires. And and I tell you, they were mainly good fires.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
very seldom did I disagree with her, which if I did, I never told her because
Right.
I'd be finished.
So I have to
So,
for myself. I think their arms up to me and my sister and James, um, with dinners and theater, and they were just like my mother and my father. And I have to say that to this day, I will be ever thankful that I have what I have today because of them. And when I bought my house in the country, it was the same thing with the bulbs and the flowers and the bird houses and There were constant bird baths arriving, the whole thing. And I have to say, being at Ford afforded me so. When I put my swimming pool on in, every day, every time I would get in that swimming pool, I would say, "Thank you, Jerry Ford." So I just feel like I owe so much of my life to have met them and worked with them, and just I'm ever so grateful for what they gave me.
Well,
Yeah, I can't leave you out. I mean, you brought me there, and you were always there for me, and we're still there for one another after 55 years.
55
Right.
years.
We
Well,
might not be married on paper, but I think we're married. And
probably.
great times. We had such great
Yeah.
times. Yeah, there were crazy times. But we had such great times.
I started in 1960 when I was modeling with Ford. And the only reason Jerry Ford took me is because he said I didn't look like any of the other guys. And in those days, it was junior modeling. And so I was called a junior, even though in the 60s, I was 30. No, I was in the 60s, I was in my 20s, but I called a junior model. And I started working for 17, and I was in every picture where the girl was.
Yeah.
But I was in the background, either looking over a shoulder, bouncing a ball, falling on the floor. And that really catapulted me into later on when the European look came in, and all of a sudden that I looked European and I started working for all the catalogs. So I had a nice run, but I became friendly with Jerry in the 60s. Jerry and I don't know, for some reason. I was a member of the athletic club, and Jerry was a member of the athletic club. So we used to meet up there, and he taught me how to play squash. Now, a kid from Brooklyn playing squash, I don't think it was ever heard of. But he taught me how to play the game, and I played it fairly well. But Jerry went on to be the club champion in his age group and played squash, as far as I know, until he was 70 years old, I believe. And that's how we bonded. And Jerry and I were very, very close. Eileen advised me about schools for my daughter. Uh, she was always there to do what you wanted to help you out and things like that. So it was a great experience, Marion. I had a great experience. I know you had, because we started at the same time. We came up together. We lived our lives with Eileen Ford and Jerry Ford. But Eileen had a lot to do with the way we are today. Uh, and Jerry has a lot to do with the way I am today. Uh, so I thank them. I thank them for the industry. I thank them for what they have done. And I thank them for what they have done for me.
Yes. Part of me is thankful that they're not really around to see what a mess it is.
Yeah. Oh, what they would do in the business now. But that's another day, another story, and another day, how Eileen and Jerry would treat the business today. Very interesting. Very interesting. Oh, yes. Oh, there's so many stories. I was just going to bring up the computers. Oh my God, with the computers.
He thought he was absolutely out of his mind, because when I first came there, there was nothing on our top floor in the townhouse. And
right.
He had that original computer that he would bring everybody up to play around with, because he was playing with that booking system.
Right.
Oh, that's going to happen. We're never going to give up charts. I'm not giving up the charts. I want to see it on the charts. And then when it really started to happen, I think for her, when we really got into computers was kind of when she moved back a little bit, because she was not going to get on a computer.
No, she hated them.
No.
She hated the computers. She thought Jerry was nuts. But he was the original guy. He introduced the computers in the United States. And he was the one. We started out with the big IBM down a basement, and and up on a fourth floor he was experimenting. He had his own office to experiment with the computer and program it with I forget this guy Art. I think he was working with.
Art Clausen.
Yeah, and the two of them. Art was the programmer and Jerry was the idea man, and they put together the computer that we are working on today. Uh, without a doubt, it's been expanded on and whatnot, but it's what we did in I think the 70s. The computer came in. Am I right, Marion?
At that time, and nobody does it anymore. I think
Yeah.
you and I, it had the capability for you and I to have computers at home.
At home, right? Right. Yeah.
Weekends, nights, whatever, to get on and work at home, which I don't think anybody does now.
No.
A few agencies have computers, if they have an agency in California, an agency here, where they can look at one another's computers, but I don't think anybody has a computer like that at home. But again, everybody does everything on their phone
Yeah.
in today's world.
Right. Or they do it on their own computer. But
Right.
we did have designated computers. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
I had this computer. Everybody thought I was nuts. And all I could do was work with Ford on it. It had all the charts of the different, of France, of California, of, Florida, and all those places. And yeah, that's right. I forget the computer at home. Whatever happened to my computer? Well, I don't know. I think it's time to go. It's
Okay.
hard to time ourselves, but Marion, thank you. You were wonderful. And I'd like to do this again if you'd like to come back. And lots of different topics. There are a lot of different people out there that I would recommend calling if they have a story and if they have something about the business, something that we can talk about and something that we think is funny or really serious. I would love to have them on. I would love to do this as much as I can with invited guests, with people who want have stories about the business, have experiments with the business, have experience with the business is what I want to say. I would love to have them on and chat with them like Marion and I are chatting, and have Marion and I chat with whoever wants to come on. I think it would be terrific. Different phases of the business, styling, hair, makeup. We worked with all these people. We could tell stories about hair and makeup people that came to the agency to meet Eileen, and it goes on and on and on. But I want to thank everybody who has listened, who put up with our chatter, and I hope you had fun with it or you learned something. And thank you, and hope to see you soon.
It was great. Yeah.
Right, Marion?
Love it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.